Author and journalist Pat Butcher and the women's marathon world record holder politics author and journalist Pat Butcher Ratcliffe. Morning both. Just looking at the men's race, Pat, first of all, it's a pretty strong field. Tola, of course, who we saw last year win, he was a surprise winner, I think it's fair to say. To win, he was a chance he could repeat today.
Oh, decidedly. I think the men's race seems to be the accent seems to be on him, whereas when we hand over to Paula for the women's race, I think there's there's at least 3 women with an even chance of winning there. So I suspect that might be of winning there. So more competitive race. But Tola ran here in 2014 as a youngster and did 2:6.7 a young teen, but came back last year having won an Olympic gold, bronze medal rather, in the 10,000 meters in the interim, and just took a dozen seconds off the course record, which might be a bit redundant because they seem to tweak this course every year. So I suppose the race record might be a little more ideal. But I mean, if you figure that he ran faster than Haile Gebrselassie, is illustrious countryman, multiple world record holder, then now at 26. And having narrowly failed to win the World Championship, gold medal in London last summer, because he was carrying an Achilles tendon injury and would probably have won it, I think, and we can talk about that later when the race unfolds. But I would about that later and say that he probably is a strong favourite to repeat for the first time since Gebrselassie, in fact.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that course record that Tola set last year, it was the 10th fastest marathon ever run, and he actually took 2 minutes off his personal best. Well, there we see the women lining up for the start. And the women's race, Paula, is absolutely fascinating because we've got Mergia, who, of course, is a 3-time winner here. She's unbeaten, in fact. She's won it the 3 times she's competed. And the time she gave her, of course, who won it last year, and rather like Tola, wasn't expected to.
No, she wasn't expected to at all, and she actually hasn't raced a marathon since then. She's concentrated on the half marathon, but you've also got the likes of Mara Dababa in there, Rosa Jujera, who's put back-to-back marathons together very, very well, and recently raced in Shanghai only about 11 weeks ago. Then you've got the likes of Teferi coming in, who has a huge pedigree on the track, but hasn't raced above 10 miles, a little bit like Anna Maru on the men's side. Yeah,
it's fascinatingly poised, both men's and women's races, and we are just a few moments away from the start. And as I mentioned, this year they decided to put the fun runners out half an hour later after the elites. It is a very early time to start running a marathon, Paul. We were speaking earlier off air, and you were saying you never started a race at 6 a.m. What kind of problems might that pose?
I think for the Ethiopian and Kenyan athletes, maybe less of a problem because they are used to training very early in the morning. They'll go out often at 5:30 or 6 a.m. for their training runs to get those done. But the biggest problem for the marathon runners, I think, is managing your eating and your fuel loading in advance, because when the start's going off at 6 a.m., some of these maybe wanted to get up around 2:30 to eat, or may have decided just to eat big last night and then try to eat, or may have decided to sleep through.
And just moments before the start, what kind of thoughts are swirling around your head before the start? What kind of thoughts? You've got to presumably shut everything out and just concentrate on what you want to do.
You have got to focus, but in the first couple of kilometres is when you really get those answers. Is your body with you today? Are your legs answering the questions that you're going to ask of them? And you don't really know that. You can tell a little bit in warm-up, but a lot of these girls and a lot of these guys will feel bad in warm-up and then feel great once they start racing. So they want to get it underway and feel good.
And Pat, chances of a quick time today in both the men's and the women's events?
I would have thought so. I mean, we talked about the course itself being tweaked, but the start times also have been tweaked. When Haile Gebrselassie ran here, start times also have been here. It was always a 7 o'clock start, and he said it was great for the first hour, but when the sun came up, it really posed him problems. That may be eliminated this year.
Well, we are underway, as you can see, and you can hear a little bit of singing and chanting in the background. We've got the kind of Ethiopian choir fan club, so to speak, in the stand. They're here every year. The early start time doesn't seem to deter them at all. So that's what you could probably pick up. And you can see the flashing, but that's what you could probably pick up. It's almost like something out of a sci-fi film as they head towards us early on. And of course, it's going to be dark for about an hour. Lights are going to It's going to start getting lighter around about 7 a.m. So it's going to start getting lighter about 60 minutes time.
That's something they're going to have to manage as well, I think, is the glare of the lights, because when you're looking into a bright light and then you need to look down to a darker road, you're looking into a bright light and then you need to check your footing, check where people are in front of you, and that might pose difficulties in itself. You can also see it's quite foggy, so the humidity is pretty high here at the moment. I was talking to someone last night who was explaining to me that the dew point here is around about 13 degrees. So at that point, it's very, very difficult to sweat efficiently when you're racing, and it's already above that now today. So it is picking up for them, and it is drying out a little bit, but it's still very high and actually quite difficult conditions for marathon running.
Yeah, I don't remember it being quite as misty as this in previous years.
Well, I was here once, Trevor, when it was 10 degrees and foggy, really foggy. I mean, there is quite a heavy mist this morning, as everyone can clearly see. And I don't know if that's going to make any difference. I mean, Paula, when you ran yesterday morning in training, you said that your throat was hurting, there seemed to be quite a bit of pollution.
Yeah, I mean, every year that you come back to Dubai, you see how much it's growing, and I guess it's inevitable within that. It's a huge city, that there will be levels of pollution. I maybe sensed it a little bit, not on the levels that I did in Beijing, but certainly on higher levels than other big cities that I've run in. This time in the morning on a Friday as well, when there's a lot less traffic around, I think it will be a lot better out there for these guys.
Just spot Tola there, tucked in.
For these guys.
Just spot Tola there behind the leading three. We've got a silver in the World Championships in London, champion last August, and obviously he's also a medalist, as Pat was saying, an Olympic medalist at 10,000 metres. And I guess the key thing, as well as focusing in the early stages, Paul, is just keeping out of trouble. We've had incidents before where there's been problems at the start and very early on. You want to just make sure you veer away out of trouble. We've had incidents before where there's been problems from any of that.
You absolutely do, and maybe that preempted the decision to set off the elite this year an hour ahead of the mass race, because there was that little tussle at the start last year, and Bekele ended up going down, and that was pretty much race over for him. So in this way, they get underway, and they've only really got probably less than 50 athletes on that start line to worry about, and it's quickly thinning out and spreading out, and they're starting now to concentrate on just getting themselves set out and spreading out, and they're starting now to concentrate on just settled into that rhythm, not using too much energy early on. You can see the makers basically doing their job perfectly with a wall in front there, and the other runners just settling down behind them. Can't really assess too much of who's in that pack, just set around them because it's dark, so they really are just concentrating on just making sure they're in their right position, and they're starting to feel their way into the rhythm. You can see that the street lights are providing a decent amount of light there, and they also have a bike in front of them this year. There is no blue line or white line or any coloured line designating the shortest route on this Dubai course. They actually follow a cyclist who's dressed in blue, he measures the course and knows that shortest line, so they'll be looking out for him, or the pacemakers will certainly be looking at him.
So they've gone through the first kilometre in 2:56. You mentioned that early on in the race, Paulie, you kind of get an idea of how your body's feeling. At what point in a race do you actually think, do you know what, I'm going to go fast today? Is it at this kind of stage, or halfway, or is it a plan that you even think about a day before, a month before? How does it work?
It's definitely something I think you think about within the race, but inside that I think it's very unique to each athlete. I like to get to halfway and then really put the hammer down from halfway. I always felt that for me it was easier to run negative splits in a marathon, and better to run fast that way. So to get to halfway feeling good and then push on from there. But you know you're feeling good in the first half, but it's about keeping a lid on it and controlling it.
So the pacemakers out front, and I'm sure they're appreciating the fact that they're out on their own, so to speak. It is the loneliness of a long-distance runners, plural, with the fun runners waiting in the wings, so to speak, wait for their turn a little bit later.
And they're not doing a bad job now. The pace asked for was 61.30 at halfway, which is 14.35 through 5k, and they've gone through 2:56, so they're 1 second off. Well, we'll let them off with that one at this stage. I think they're doing a good job. What you don't want to do is go too fast in the early stages. Better to be a second or two back and then to make that up later on.
Yeah, the tactical battles between the likes of Tola, Lemmer and Gese will no doubt be played out a little bit later in the race. We've also got Geremiu in the race, another Ethiopian who was a late entry, and he ran a personal best of 2:06.12 last year, and that was only his third ever marathon. That was in Berlin in September, so he's 25. There's a little bit of promise there.
Yeah, I think that's what Dubai is really known for, is guys coming out here, and girls, and really making it a huge breakthrough. It's probably got the biggest prize money purse on the circuit, but no appearance money. So if you come here, you'd better be ready to race well and to show that you're in shape. And I think that's why, as well as the flat course and the good conditions, it's produced fast times year after year, because these guys know that it's an opportunity for them to really make that breakthrough and to come here in good shape. If you're not in shape, they often don't bother turning up.
Well, what's interesting is 2012, 13 and 14, the race was won by a debutant in the men's, the race on the men's side on each occasion. And my goodness me, that's a slightly faster second kilometre that Paul is just indicating on screen. So yeah, every race director and race promoter wants to think that they've got a world record course. This certainly is a world record course, and it's going to depend very much on how these guys work together and how the weather conditions pan out. But at the moment, it's all looking good. But just to go back to those debutant winners, some of them go on to greater things, and others seem to disappear. I mean, the course record prior to Tola running 2:4:11 last year was set in 2012 by Ayeli Abshiro, 21-year-old. He did 2:04:23 out of the blue. He and two other very fast Ethiopians got selected for the London Olympics. None of them finished the race, and he has seemed to have disappeared. Whereas Tola, in contrast, who have disappeared, almost won, but for that injury. I don't know if you agree with me, Paul. At 35k, he looked as if injury. I don't know if you agree. Won the World Championships in London last summer.
Yeah, he did look really strong, although listening to him talking in the press conference the other day, he said that it was one of the hardest races that he's ever raced in London as races, and that he really did struggle in those closing stages, maybe because of the injury and the lack of training in the build-up too.
Just going back to the prize money that you mentioned, Paul, it's $200,000 to the winner today. Same for the men and women. We're egalitarian in this sport. And there's also a $250,000 bonus if the world record goes. The world record for the men, by the way, the rest will make a note of it, 2:02:57, set by Dennis Kimeto of Kenya. That was in Berlin 4 years of Kenya to go. The course record is 2:04:11, and for the women, I won't even embarrass you by asking you what the time was, Paul. It was 2:15:25, and the course record's 2:19:31. But as Pat says, it is a different course, so always a little tricky to compare like for like, because it's not really. But that was a quick second kilometre.
Yeah, I think I agree with Pat. I think it's a little bit too quick. Although that was the pace of the pacemakers, and you can see there is a little bit of a gap opened up behind, just now starting to get bridged, but it's already starting to fragment a little bit the field behind them. They know that it's fast. These guys will be very in tune with their own bodies, the paces that they've trained at, and a lot of the ones who got slightly burned in the past maybe came here last year, went too fast in the first half. Tola was the only one who was able to hold it together anywhere near well in the closing stages of last year. So a lot of those guys will have learned those lessons, and you can just see their third kilometre has popped up 2:53, so it's still very, very fast. They have scaled it back a little bit, but there's probably been some shouts come from behind as well. Ease it back. Interestingly, behind us, these are three Kenyan guys pacing for majority of Ethiopian guys racing today. I don't know whether that's significant or not, but the world record is held by a Kenyan.
Indeed it is, and in fact only Kenyans and Ethiopians have ever won the men's race. 7 Kenyans and 11 Ethiopians. And when we showed you the start list at the beginning of the show, that list obviously dominated by runners from those two particular countries. So those three at the front, all pacemakers. There's Tola in the blue, looking very strong. The blue. He was only the 8th fastest man in the field actually last year when he won the way. We were talking about it being a surprise. He may have even surprised himself, but I was interested in what he said after. He said he thought he could have gone quicker. He could have gone inside 2:04, he said.
Yeah, and I think probably
What he said.
could have done, because that was a little bit too fast in the early stages last year, and if he'd gone stages last year through, say, in 62 minutes at halfway last year, maybe he could have run faster. But it's easy to say that afterwards. It's what you do on the day and that really counts. And it's actually Ronald Korea of Kenya who is sitting in behind the 3 Kenyan pacemakers at the moment, and then Tola and Tura, they're just tracking him, then Tola and Tura, they're just behind, but allowing a little bit of space to open up, which indicates that maybe they recognise that it's a little bit too quick in these early stages and they don't want to get carried away too early.
Yeah, Korea's got a personal best, 2:07.26. That was in Frankfurt a couple of years back. He had an in and out 2017. He had, and you're probably fair to say, but he did finish 3rd in Madrid last year.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning in the last 5 years, only once has the men's winning time been outside 2:05. It's a very, very fast course, just to underline how fast this is.
And why is that, Pat? Is it a combination of the surface, how flat it is, the conditions?
Well, it's probably the best road surface I would think anywhere in the world. I don't know if Paula, you've had a chance to run on any of this course, but I mean, even driving, you can see it's almost almost as if the roads are tailored like good lawns. You know, a bit like this is a Wimbledon, if you like, of marathon courses, or certainly surfaces.
Yeah, I think the only course you could probably compare it with in terms of the road surface is maybe Berlin, but it's definitely manicured. It's out there and it's smooth. You'd be hard pushed to find any pothole or anything in this road, and it's not concrete, which is significant. We see the 4th kilometre, they've settled down back now into that 2:56, which is better, and there's probably some relief in the pack behind that's eased back to that pace. They do see the clock on the car in front of them, so every kilometre they will see the previous kilometre or the kilometre they've just passed flash up on the car in front of them to give them an indication of how fast they're going. There was some debate over whether they would get shouted out to them, the splits every kilometre last night. I'm not sure whether that's happening or not, but certainly they will see the cumulative time and the individual kilometre splits.
That's Seifu Tura on the right-hand side of your screen in the orange, running alongside Tola, who's one of the youngest in the field. Is in his early 20s. Hasn't got too is in his early 20s. Too much marathon experience, but he was 2nd in Seoul just a couple of months ago. In fact, he ran inside 2:10.
I mean, just to go back to that lead car, which is showing the runners the cumulative times, I think it's also got a facility for showing them what that means the finishing time would be. So, I mean, they should be getting a lot of very good information. They should be getting information out there.
Well, we've seen every time we look at those pacemakers, we see them every kind of 10-15 seconds just glancing down at the watch. So they're clearly taking their duties very seriously, as they should, to try and set up as fast a time as possible here. I mentioned sorry, Pat. I mentioned Paul Tura there, the youngster. What do you think is kind of the prime age? When are you at your peak? I'm not asking you these difficult questions, and you're grinning at me. What's a peak age for your average marathon runner?
Well, again, I think it's very individual. It used to be that the marathon was an event that you would move towards the end of your career. So you would race first on the track and gradually progress up the distances, a little bit like I did. So I was 28 when I ran my first marathon, 29 when I ran my first marathon, the 2:15 in London. But now you see people coming straight to the marathon and almost skipping that phase of racing over 5,000 and 10,000 metres and half marathon, and people making debuts. I think we've got an 18-year-old making a marathon debut here today. So it can really, really vary. I think the significant thing is more that I believe you have a certain number of top class marathons in your legs. So whether you start that at 20 or whether you start that at 30, that's going to sort of 30 signify how long your career is probably going to go on. And if you race hard and you race often, then you're going to have a shorter racing career than if you race less often and maybe don't push it right to the well every time.
Well, that ladder on screen, you can see that all of the top hopes. You can see that all the top favourites are right in there behind the pacemakers, if a few metres behind. But at an accelerated pace like this, it's hardly surprising that they're staying off the back of those pacemakers.
Just going back to what we were saying about age, Paul, because it works into this quite well. Mo Farah is has been so successful, 5,000, 10,000 metres, had a stellar career. He now is going into marathons. The fact that he's run 5 and 10 for so many years, does that possibly take something out the legs? He was just talking about it, or do you think he can have a phenomenal career over this longer distance?
It's a good question, because I think that, in all fairness, for Mo Farah, he's shown that he's the best in the world. Over 5 and 10,000 metres, double Olympic champion, how many times world champion. He's put those races back to back, and he's shown that he is the best in the world right now over those distances. He hasn't shown that yet over the marathon, and he is also world class over 1,500 metres. So to have that range from 1,500 metres right up to the marathon is a very, very big ask. I mean, we see Guleta Burka running out here. She's run 3:58 over the 1,500 metres on the women's side, and only so far 2:26 at the marathon. So it is a big jump, and the style of running, the efficiency of running is very different. So Mo's aware of that, and I think he's more relishing the challenge of the fact that it's a distance he can sort of get his teeth into something fresh and see how he is at that, and take the not the staleness, and see how he is at that. And but I think he just felt that he'd done everything that he could do on the track, and now he wanted to take on a new challenge.
Well, time will tell. You can see on screen there, they're 10 seconds inside world record pace after the first 5k. Is that a bit quick, Pat, do you think?
Well, I mean, as Paul indicated earlier, it's well, certainly that second kilometre was a bit rapid. I mean, it really is too early to tell. You know, when the current world record was set, they did go out at a very frantic pace, but then dropped off in the middle of the race to something which was quite sedate, but then came with an almighty sort of last 5-10k. You really can never tell.
I know you've been following the sport for many, many years, Pat. What's your view on Mo Farah and his marathon potential career?
Well, I've already been on air at the after the World Champs that I thought that maybe he sort of lacked that concentration factor to be going all the way to 42.19 5k, and he's done so much, and I mean, Carlos Lopes of Portugal won the Olympic marathon when he was 37 years old, so age is not necessarily a deterrent, except that Lopez was injured a lot during, not necessarily a deterrent, except his career, and I think he just maintained that sort of that excitement about world-class running, that when he got back into it, he capitalized on it, so that's it. Why he could win the Olympic marathon at 37. But Mo has done so much. I just wonder if that's going to be a sort of slight deterrent to him, maintaining excellence across the distances, as Paul says, from 1,500 metres to 42.195.
So the 6th kilometre, 2:57, so they're still inside world record pace. I think I saw 6:45, Paula, for the first 5k for the women. We got a brief shot of them through the darkness. Just put 6:45 into some kind of context for us after 5k for the women.
16:45.
16,
sorry, for the women going through there. So they're on a reasonable pace. The pace that was they're on asked for. In the women's race, where there are actually 3 pacemakers, and I think 2 of them could be related to some of the athletes running, but they asked for 70 minutes at halfway, and that's the lead group of women that you can see there, including Teferi. I saw Mara Dababa. It's very difficult in the dark to actually work out who those athletes are running there. I'm sure that's Mergier on the other side. So I think most of the main protagonists are the side are there in that group. There is a following group with a pacemaker that have asked for 71.30, so that's 2:23 pace at halfway. So I mean, it's sub 2:20 pace at the minute, or pretty much it's close to that with the 16:45. So they're on schedule and they're settling in, and you can see the two pacemakers in front doing a good job there, and the women pretty much just settling down behind them, and nothing, just settling. Really exciting yet happening in this women's race, as you wouldn't expect in the first 5 kilometres. It'll start to build up much later in the race here.
Well, we've had Ethiopian winners in the women's race for the last 6 years. Russian women actually won the first 4 editions. Dorang won the Galova won twice, Ivanova and Pamela Trio also won, but it's been Ethiopian dominated. It's been Ethiopian of late. Back with the men then, there's Korea the youngster, and Tola just in behind him.
Well, just to pick up on that point, Trevor, I mean, in the men's, I think it's 9 out of the last 10 years has been won by an Ethiopian, and there is actually an error in the program. The Ethiopian women have won the last 10 races. I think Selefech Mergier, one of her 3 victories, she's somehow turned into a Kenyan. I mean, and this race did used to be pretty much even-handed between Kenyans and Ethiopians, but in recent years it seems to have devolved very much into an Ethiopian race. I don't know if the Kenyans just don't like running so early in the year, maybe a bit too many Christmas festivities or what, but it's certainly been Ethiopia all the way the past decade.
It's Fakadu Haftu in the middle of your screen, another Ethiopian who's 23, just coming up 24, and he broke 60 minutes for the half marathon in Valencia last October, 59:22. That was the 8th October, fastest time in the world. He was 3rd in that race. 8th fastest time last year, of course, that means. But there are several runners in both the men's and women's race who are kind of coming from half marathons and blooding themselves in the full distance in Dubai.
Well, speaking of which, Ayanu of Ethiopia has got some terrific track times, really rapid, under 7:30 for 3K, 3,000 meters on the track, and actually 12:48, which is quite an extraordinary time for 5,000 meters, and he's run good 10K and right up to 10 miles as well. So I mean, if he can keep it together, that tradition of debutante winners here might be together. That tradition might extend to him. In fact, Paula, I was interested when you ran your race. You obviously had some male pacemakers. I mean, do you talk to him? Do you tell him to sort of slow down a bit, speed up a bit, and or speed up, or what? How does it work?
I think it's probably again, I keep saying this, but it is individual, and I think I met the guys beforehand, and I had some reservations before if I wanted to run it. I felt like I could run as fast as I was capable of doing on my own with just the lead vehicles around me. But I took it into my mind that I focused on the fact that I was going to actually concentrate on racing them. So I remember clearly when I beat one of them because they dropped out around the Isle of Dogs, and then I remember at the end being very frustrated that the other guy, Christopher Candy, had actually outsprinted me because we'd gone up different finish lines, and so he'd managed to get a second quicker than me at the end, which I was quite annoyed about, because if I'd have been racing next to him, I definitely tried to race him next to him, and was conscious of the fact that people were going to say, oh, you've sat in behind the pacemakers the whole way, and so I ran alongside them and tried to run alongside, but I didn't really talk to them. No, I don't usually have that much energy for talking to anybody during the race.
Well, Trevor was asking earlier about prognostications. I mean, did you have a time in mind when you went into that race?
I never ran with times in mind. I more ran with times that I was trying to get ahead of. So I was of the view that if you were trying to hit specific split times, what would you do if you were ahead of those? Would you panic and think you've got to slow down, or do you just keep pushing on? So I more tried to tune into my body, and my goal going into that 2003 race was to hit as many miles as I could under the average time of what I'd run in Chicago. So I knew I was capable of going quicker, and just to try to run a little bit quicker each mile and then build up from there.
Well, we're about a fifth of the way through the men's race, and they are still well inside world record paces. You can see there, 13 seconds inside to be precise, 8 kilometres in, 23:29. They have covered that distance in. It's very, very quick. Although we have seen this in previous years. In fact, certainly 2 years ago, Paula, when we were here, I seem to remember a similar kind of figure at this stage, and it didn't transpire into anything close to a world record.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult area. You can see there Tola looking very, very strong. He's moving forward in this pack, looking very, very strong. He's moving forward. Well, pretty much the first time he's controlled it, but he's not really made any significant move, and I don't think this is a significant move yet. Without a doubt, in that group, there are guys who will not be there probably even in 5 kilometres, but certainly in another 15 kilometres they will not be able to handle this pace, but they are going with it now. It's a very difficult decision to make. That's Alain Marou that we were talking about earlier in the white vest, now coming onto the shoulder of Tola, and I think he's going to be a really interesting factor in this race. When you jump in and you haven't raced above 10 miles, there are a lot of questions above 10 miles in your mind. But he was down on the start list to race last year, didn't come because he wasn't ready. So clearly he knows what it takes, what the shape he needs to be in, and he knows the training that he's done. So either he's over-committing early in this race, or he is in shape to come here and race very, very well and give Tola a run for his money.
Yeah, and plus also, when you are so inexperienced at this distance, you know, it's not unreasonable to expect you may make some mistakes early on. You have to, you wouldn't be human otherwise.
Exactly, and I think it's a nice position to be in. You can come to the marathon and you can say, okay, I can take some risks here, because if I screw it, and you can say, okay, I can take some risk up. It's my first time and I'm just learning. And let's face it, the way we all learn is to make mistakes out there. So it's a little bit of pressure off when you're a debutant coming into the race, and you can maybe do some things that you wouldn't do if you were a more seasoned, experienced marathon runner.
Well, it's worth mentioning that he's the same age as Tola. It's worth mentioning, 26 years old, but he's been as conservative almost as you were with your marathon, as conservative almost in debut at 28. Because Tola was running marathons when he was 22. He certainly came here when he was 22 and did 2:6:17.
We've just gone through kilometre number 9 in 2:56. So it ain't slowing much. 26:26 the cumulative time for the first 9 kilometres, 14 seconds, as you can see, inside world record pace. Trying to remember from memory a couple of years back when they started kind of seriously regressing. I think it was just past halfway, somewhere like that anyway, we'll see. Somewhere.
Yeah, if you think back maybe to Monza and to the breaking to Beard that happened in, what was it, April-May time, Beard that happened there, the guys were able to hang together till halfway, and it was then that people started to drop off. So really those questions start getting answered around halfway. Before then, a lot of these guys are capable of hanging with the pace that they'll need to do. They can run 61-minute pace for half marathon, most of the guys in this group, but it's whether they can handle that and carry it in their legs in the second half, and there we'll see the questions start getting answered.
Well, you'd be a good judge of this, Paula. I mean, Tola's best half marathon is 59:37, so that's close to 2 minutes outside the half 2 marathon time that they're looking for here. Is that just about right, do you think?
Yeah, I would guess. It's probably about right. I'm trying to think more from the women's side of it. So I think when I ran my side of it, so I think personal best I went through in just outside 68 minutes, and probably on the half marathon I was capable of not much quicker than I'd run. So I'd run 65:40 for the half hour. Actually, I ran that afterwards, but I knew I was in that kind of shape. So yeah, that kind of 2.5 minutes maybe for the women, for me seemed about right. Having said that, in London last year we saw Mary Keitany go out in 6:96 high, which was very, very quick, and she was able to hold it together in a way that I think surprised me and surprised a lot of people, the way she could hold it together in the closing stages. We saw the damage that did to the likes of Tirunesh Dibaba and Vivian Cheriot behind her.
So 10 kilometres in then to this men's race. They've been running in the darkness for the best part of half an hour. Might be quite appreciative when the sun peeks through in about 30 minutes time. So the three pacemakers are the first three names on your screen. The three pace... Tola right in the mix. In the career also, the youngster Lemmer, who we haven't really mentioned so far. Cissé Lemmer from Ethiopia, who's here for the 4th year in a row. Was 5th on debut actually a few years back, then 4th in a personal best. He's run just over 2 hours 5 minutes, and he was 3rd last year, so that is progression. 5th, 4th, 3rd. So he would expect to potentially get on the podium today, or at least have a very good chance of it. Grew up at altitude, Lemmer, on his parents' farm.
Well, I think most of the guys here grew up at altitude, and that's probably significant. People often ask, why do the best distance runners hail from Kenya and Ethiopia? And I think it's a number of things, but one significant factor is certainly that they're born at altitude, grow up and train at altitude, eating a diet and living a lifestyle that's very conducive to running well over the long distances, and also the fact that the culture, the #1 sport in Ethiopia is probably marathon running, or is certainly distance running, and in Kenya too, and that's not the case if you go to many other countries around the world. That 10k time, 29:07, is 16 seconds now up on the pace that Dennis Kimetto ran when he ran that world record in Berlin. So it's very, very fast. Is it too fast? I think it probably is at this stage, although you can see the gap back from the pacemakers to the main pack is starting to grow. So the main pack are starting to realise that, hey, this is a little bit too quick, guys. Can we sit back off this a little bit, please? And they're hoping that by then letting that gap open up, the pacemakers will realise it and will just scale it back a little bit. Open up, the pacemakers will realise it and will just scale.
Well, presumably they do look behind them from time to time and see what's going on. There we go.
Well, this is a bit bold, isn't it?
Yeah, this is maybe a little bit naive, or maybe he's just testing people out a little bit, saying, okay guys, do you think this is fast? Well, this is, for me, this isn't fast, and it isn't for him yet at this stage, but it's very, very early to be doing that. What he's trying to do is just bridge that gap back so that he's sitting back in that almost V formation that was probably made a little bit famous by Eliud Kipchoge in that Breaking 2 bid, and how they ran that V formation, but with a lot more pacemakers, and with a pacemaker formation that they knew was going to be consistent and going to be there all the way through the race. That isn't going to be the case today. I'm not sure how far the pacemakers are going to try and go, but I would imagine they'll be trying to go to around about 30 kilometres, which is quite a way into this race, but not right to the end. So at some point these guys at the front will have to be making the pace themselves and working hard for their times today.
Another of those up there
Working hard for their times today
is Bahami Legesse, who's again a half marathon specialist. He's had a lot of success. He's won half marathons in Berlin, in New Delhi, in Ras Al Khaimah, which is in the Ras Al Arab Emirates. In fact, he's won twice in New Delhi, and 3 of those winning times below an hour.
Well, just to underline, the two guys right behind and the pacemakers we're talking about are both marathon debutants, and they're maybe being a bit presumptuous to be running so fast so early, but yeah, it's paid off in the past.
It's the impetuosity of youth, Pat, I think, is part of it. A little bit of adrenaline of it. And the experience of the likes of Tola in behind is not going to be fazed by that. I don't think he's going to be particularly concerned that 2 young marathon debutants are trying to put the hammer down after 10 kilometres.
No, I think he's probably concentrating on just sitting back a little bit, just letting the race unfold around him. He doesn't need to worry about trying to chivvy the pacemakers along at any point. If he wanted to come here and run fast, he's getting that, and he can now just sort of allow the story to tell itself and allow the people coming in to make their mistakes around him, or to commit themselves and show the shape that they're in, and to make their mistakes around him, or to commit. He needs to just take it in as the other guys do in that group and get some idea. We've lost picture there, so hopefully we'll get those back as soon as possible.
So you can see that the second 5 kilometres, as opposed to the first 5, was a bit quicker, 9 seconds quicker.
You can see Mayra Dababa there with a water bottle, just dropped the water bottle, sitting right with a water bottle just behind the pacemakers. Behind her, I think it is still Teferi, although it's very hard to read on the screen, I'm afraid, at the moment. But it looks like Mergia on the far side too. So I don't think the girls in that pack have changed since we saw them at 5 kilometres. I think the main group are still there, and the people that we would expect to be there, the pace are still there, and the people that we would have just picked up slightly. I mean, it was maybe a little bit cautious the first 5 kilometres for them, but that's a better way to run it, and I would say it might pan out to be a wiser way than we're seeing in the men's race.
Yeah, I think I spotted Worknesh de Gefer, the winner last year, also on the left-hand side. Yeah, also pretty sure. It's hard to pick him out, obviously, because it's pitch black still in Dubai. And our cameramen and motorbikes working overtime to try and illuminate the pictures for you. So we go back to the men. Tola looking really relaxed. You have to in behind him, really relaxed. 21 seconds. Inside world record. 21 seconds. Pace 12 kilometres in. They are not slowing down.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Trevor, but I think that world record is actually the even or the even pace that would be required to hit the world record, rather than the actual splits record that Dennis Kimetto ran when he did that. I'm not sure whether that's significant or not at this stage, but that they're probably not going to run it in an even split way today. Certainly the way they've committed early on. I'm just looking now to see if I can see where Alamaru has gone. He is further back. He is still in there. He's just dropped further back down that pack, and it's now Tola who's reasserted his dominance at the front of the main pack of racers in this field here today, but already starting to thin out a lot.
Yeah, so it was a little brief sojourn towards the front for those two. They've now dropped back into the main little bunch, just behind the likes of Tola and Haftu. And Korea on the well, kind of in the middle now in the orange vest. Just going back to the times, it does have a serious reputation, as we've mentioned before, for being a quick course. As we've 2012, 4 men ran sub 12, 4 hours 5 minutes, and the winning time, which was Abshero's 2:04.23, was the 4th quickest ever at the time, and that was on his marathon debut. The same year, it was the first time that the top 3 in a women's marathon had all run sub 2:20.
I'm just looking in that pack, and alongside Alamaru there is a runner who has number 2413 on their vest, and I'm afraid I don't have any idea who that is, but he's right up there in the leading pack. I don't know if he was a late entry or picked up the wrong number and didn't have his name on his bib, but the others do all seem to have their names on, but the others do all seem their bibs that he has a number there instead.
I think all of us are scratching our heads at that one. We'll try and find out for you who that might be.
Well, you will get this occasionally where a top class, you will get this occasionally where a runner will be a bit miffed at not getting an entry in the race, so they'll just put in a citizen's entry, if you like. They'll turn up and and try and prove their point.
.251. I'm not sure whether the pacemakers have got the message from those behind. This is mad, isn't it?
At this stage, it's very foolhardy. You can just see Kipyego there checking his watch as if to think, oh, have I looked at that wrong? Maybe he's missed a digit off the times that he's aiming for. But certainly there is a gap behind, but certainly there is a cushion, if you like, where these guys are maybe trying to say you're going too fast, back off a little bit. It is a difficult job to pacemake because you've got to be aware of what's going on behind you. It's not about you, it's of what's going on in your body and how you feel racing. It's about judging how the guys behind are doing and what they want from you and doing the best job possible. And it's a big technique to master. And I think that's why we see the same guys often time and time again come back and do pacemaking jobs, or we see guys who jobs ahead of their marathon debuts, as it were, come and just try their hand at pacemaking first, just to get a feel for the pace that people want to run at or are prepared to run at in the first half of the race.
Well, I think it's worth saying that Kipyego is a terrific half marathoner himself. He's run 59 minutes and 14 seconds, and anything under the hour is really, really world class. But what will happen is that he may not be on optimum form, so his agent or his manager will say, here, do a bit of pace, agent or his manager will say, here, making for us, you'll get a bonus, etc., especially if a fast time, a course record, or even a world record is run. But in contrast, one of the other pacemakers in there, Kibitok, his best time is 61.50 for a half marathon, and they're running 61.30, or they're heading for 61.30. So 30, or they're heading for. He's close to his best, whereas Kipyego is a couple of minutes outside his best.
Maybe that's what happened. He's going for a PB.
Yeah, he didn't quite read the brief correctly, maybe. Just worth mentioning, we've got a lot of the fun runners just jogging towards the start. There you go. They've been towards the start. There you go. No doubt training and preparing for this for, well, hopefully for quite a while. Otherwise, quite a while. You know what they say, fail to prepare to fail. But they're raising an awful lot of money for charity. A lot of them. There's some corporate competitions within that race as well. So we wish within that short of those well.
Well, it might be an amusing anecdote for us. It certainly wasn't for Kenenisa Bekele last year, but one of the reasons that these two starts have been separated by an hour this year is that when Kenenisa fell, in the melee at the start of the elite race, the public race, if you like, was off pretty much immediately afterwards. And he said that one of the public runners recognized him, dragged him to his feet, said, "Oh my God, Bekele, go on." So, yeah, but as Paula said, that was his race over effectively, because they ran the similar sort of pace to what they're doing now for the first 5K last year, and he was nowhere near.
26 seconds, so it's just come down a little bit, maybe a little dose of reality.
Yeah, significantly there, that 14th kilometre outside of 3 minutes, so 3:01, a 10-second difference from the 13th kilometre. So yeah, I think the memo has been kilometres. So somebody maybe has shouted from the pack behind. Kipyego is starting to break a little bit, Kipruto with him. So they are realising that it's faster than these guys want, and starting to back it back a little bit to a more reasonable pace.
Interesting what Pratt was saying, Paula. I guess you've never been manhandled by some guy dressed as a rhino or dressed Big Bird on the start line of a marathon, have you?
No, that hasn't ever happened. Although I have to say, when I got the opportunity to run in London in 2015 and went off the mass club, the club start essentially, then it was one of the best experiences that I've had running the marathon, because you are in amongst all of the atmosphere, and then the marathon, because that's what the guys in the elite race in some sense miss out on, because they don't have that camaraderie around them that you experience further back. But at the same time, they have the full elite further back, but at the same time treatment, they have their own special drinks laid out all along the course. They have the road to themselves. They can pretty much pick the line that they want to run along, and that's a lot more difficult to do when you're in a mass start with a lot of people around you. Sometimes can help some of the mass runners who don't want to go off too fast, the fact that they are held back by the sheer volume of runners around them.
Well, it's interesting, you look at the stats, when this event started in 2000, total amount of runners, and this is the marathon, the 10k and the 4k fun run, fewer than 2,000. Last year number had risen to 25,000 plus, and this year they're hopeful it might even be up to 30,000. So it has captured the public's imagination in this part of the world.
I mean, there's clearly a lot of expats that still run here, but I think the Dubai Sports Run Here Council is really making big efforts to get the local population interesting, and not only from a health perspective, but from a social perspective as well. There are apparently 400 events now in Dubai of one sort or another over the year, and the marathon's just one of 4, I think they said at the press conference, that has got a 5-star ranking. And well, that's not surprising. The marathon has given the fast times they've produced over the past 10 or so years.
So back to the women, 45 minutes in nearly. So back to the week. Still trying to pick him out. There's De Barber, clearly.
Yeah, there's De Gever sitting behind her, Tesfaye behind her. On the far side, I can see Tedesca. I think, is that Mergia on the far side of is that Mergia on the Barber? I think it may be, but we're starting to get, you can see the sun starting to peak a little bit above the skyline here, and we're starting to get a little more light on this women's race. They don't benefit from the floodlights, if you like, that the men have got around them to help us pick out the numbers, but for them, I think it's pretty comfortable conditions right now, although it did start off quite humid and difficult, very dark around the women when they were running earlier on.
Well, they've got about another 15 minutes before it's significantly lighter, so you'll get a much clearer view from 7 o'clock onwards local time.
Well, as you can see, the women have got a couple of men pacemakers in there too. I think we probably haven't mentioned it, but I mean, De Barber, it was the world champion in 2015, and then got a bronze medal in the Olympic Games in Rio, and so she's probably, I suppose, with a history like that, a marginal favourite here, do you think, Paula, despite the fact that Mergia's won, I think, 3 times and has sort of got a lock on this race, if you like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting a bit better a look now, and I don't think that isn't Mergia on the far side.
She's up there, I'm sure, somewhere. I'm sure I've seen her.
She was earlier on, but I can't see her in that pack anymore. I don't know, I mean, she ran a very, very wise race in London last year, Mergia, when the others went out very, very fast. She stuck to her pace, ran very conservatively in the early stages, and picked up a lot of the debris in the closing stages of that race to get herself up to 3rd. But prior to that, it really had been Mara De Barber who'd kind of got it right more often in the big races, particularly more often in the championship races, and she's right up there now today, looking very, very good. De Gever debuted here last year, surprised a lot of people, and has come here this year with that weight of expectation on her. People are expecting her to reproduce what she did last year. So far, she's shown that she's capable of doing that. She's certainly tracking Mara De Barber. She's not interested in going in front of her. You can see the eye line focusing on the heels of Mara De Barber, the eye line in front of her, and she's not going to commit too much in this race at this point.
Are you surprised, Paula, that De Gever didn't do more marathons in 2017 rather than half marathons after what we saw from her here in January?
Yeah, a little bit, but she is young. She's still got a lot of a career ahead of her. Maybe she's still decided just to scale back. She had made a lot of money in her first marathon race here, so she didn't need financially to race another marathon for the rest of that year. Maybe it was a long-term plan to her to come back this year and in between her to work on her speed and just race a few of those half marathons and gain just racing experience before she really goes on to the championship stage at the marathon.
Well, after that slower 14th kilometre, we've gone back to, well, normal service has been resumed. 2:56 for kilometre 15, 2:54 for the 16th kilometre, which means 47:03 total, 20 seconds inside world record pace. So they've picked it up again, and it's now, as you can see, significantly lighter.
Just briefly to go back to De Gever, I understand that she did want to run an autumn marathon, but she picked up an injury which obviated that. So that's pretty much the reason why she's had a whole year of just running half marathons and is back here.
Dibaba and De Gever just cigarette paper De Gever just between them at the moment, those two big names. Looks like Tadesse on the far side, who was an unknown when she first came here. It was back in 2011, and then she smashed her personal best by more than 6 minutes in that race. And since then she's won in Seoul, Shanghai and in Paris, although she has had quite a few injuries over the last few years, so good to see her back fit again.
Well, we were talking about ages to debut earlier on. I mean, in many ways, the Africans have sort of upset so many prejudices that we've had in the past. I mean, Paula sounded aghast at the idea of running a marathon at 18 years of age, and I suspect so would most people outside of Africa be. But I mean, a lot of the women here are fairly mature nowadays. They're in their, well, in this race in particular, they're in their late 20s as the dawn really is breaking now, and so is the pace of the women's race by the looks of it.
Yeah, I think Dibaba and De Gever, they're deciding with Tadesse following that. De Gever, oh, she missed a drinks bottle, Mayra Dibaba, so she's just gone back for that. It is a technique in itself which some of these women maybe need to practice, to make sure that you are aware of when those drink stations are coming up and that you can move ahead to get that. So what we may have been seeing there was Dibaba trying to get ahead. She was on the wrong side of the road. The drink station tables are all on the left-hand side. So if you're running on the right-hand side of the pack, are all on the left-hand side, and you're coming up to 5, 10, 15, 20 kilometre, 25 kilometres, you need to start at 25 to get on the other side of the road to be able to sight your bottle and to be able to get it without any mishaps. And she didn't quite manage to do that. So that was probably the reason for them accelerating there, was to try and get on the right side of the road to be able to get their bottles, or the left side.
So back with the men, kilometre 17, 2:55. So this is starting to get interesting now, as this is head vaguely towards halfway. 21 k's would be the halfway point. These there or thereabouts.
And you can just see every time we come back to this lead pack of men, there's one more guy just tailing off back down the road behind, and that is the car damage that's inevitable really when they go out at the pace that they have done today. As we said a while back, there are only going to be a certain number who are going to be able to absorb that pace and to carry on running decent in the second half of the race. Tola's certainly one of those, and there will be some more in that group behind him, but every time you can see the gaps growing and growing back down the road, and some of these guys are not even going to be back to finish today because of the pace that they've committed to early on in this race.
Well, fair play to Tola. He's making no bones about this, is he? He's putting his stamp on the race, pretty much as he tried to do in the World Championships last summer when he was carrying that injury. But he said when he started back in October after a 2-month rest to get over the Achilles tendon injury, he's just been feeling better and better and better. So that's why he's so confident, I think.
Yeah, he's got that smooth style. As we head back towards the start line for the mass participation event. Fantastic to see so many people in this part of the world just raring to go for a marathon. Some of them, of course, will not have run a marathon before. A personal achievement just to complete. Not been before. A personal achievement, bother too much about the time.
Well, it's interesting you should mention that, Trevor, because I was wanting to ask Paula, you know, when the marathon boom sort of first began in earnest about 30-odd years ago, I remember newspapers running 8-week training programs, which I just thought was insane. I mean, when people ask you about what should I do, what do you say? I mean, I'd say, well, don't train for at least a year.
Oh, I don't know about a year. I think a lot of people might get hurt if they train for a year. Certainly lose motivation if they train for that long ahead of a major target. I think if you've never run before, then you're looking at a 16 to 20 week build up to be able to comfortably run a marathon and enjoy it. But for these guys, they can turn it around in 6, 7, 8 weeks certainly. So when you already have a base level of fitness, then you can come into a marathon and build up to it a lot quicker than if you're starting from scratch, which is probably normal. And I think if you're just trying to get around a marathon and you're trying to run in the 4-hour range, then you don't need, obviously, range as intensive a build-up as if you're trying to challenge the 2-hour barrier.
I mean, what lead-in period did you have from the time when you thought, you know, I've got to start thinking about marathons now until you actually set out on one?
It couldn't be longer, I think, than 4 months, so longer than 16 weeks or so, because I think then the danger was that you'd get in shape too soon, and it's very, very hard to hold it when you get into that kind of treading the line shape between tipping it over and getting ill or injured and getting able to get to the race and give it your absolute best shot. So I would generally not start any hard work in build up until January for an April marathon.
Fascinating. Okay, so that's 55 minutes in nearly, and obviously you can get a much better view now of what's going on out on the course. Absolutely pancake flat. It's the odd little rise for a short part of the course to where the bridge has been built, although they're not actually going over the bridge, but it is a slight incline. Dibaba there, centre of your screen, looking confident, and right behind her, tracking her every move, Worknesh Tegefa, won last year. About 12 or 15 women in that little group.
Yeah, it's a big group, and we can't see who is in the back portion of that group. I can see Dida there. There is Teferi. I haven't seen Mergia in there, so we're not sure if she is still in that leading pack of women or if she's running with a second pack. She may yet be on the back of that. We just haven't had a shot of it.
January is actually the coolest month of the year here in Dubai. You heard Pat mention earlier, we had some pretty chilly days here. It's not warm, even though it's 7 o'clock, and in previous years it's been distinctly sunny, but not this year.
Well, I was surprised at that
This year.
19 degrees. It certainly doesn't feel that warm to me. I'd think more 15 or 16.
I've worked
But to me, I'd think more.
out, Pat, that I don't know if you agree, as you get older, it feels colder. So that 15 seconds inside world record pace, that's coming down now as the kilometre times go up, per kilometre times go up.
Yeah, are still very much on the asked for pace, though, if not a little bit ahead pace, though, and that's probably more significant at this stage. Like I say, I think these guys are going to find it very hard today to run negative splits in this race because they have gone out so hard. So what they're looking at is to try and hit that halfway mark somewhere around the 61:30. And then be able to 30 hang on as well as possible in the second half. To come back and to run faster is pretty much impossible now given the pace that they've gone out at. So what they need to do is just maintain that fall off as well as they possibly can and not allow that to be too significant in the second half of this race.
Well, as Trevor mentioned earlier, there's a new bridge along the beach road, and the course has been truncated. Well, not truncated overall. They've switched it so there's an extra couple of turns in there. But you just saw one of them. They're so broad that it doesn't really stop the athletes running at that same pace at all. And in fact, in that same past, this long beach road, some of the athletes have said, well, it's a bit boring. So maybe that extra couple of turns are going to help these guys concentrate.
Yeah, I mean, it can be difficult. It's one of the factors, I guess, that people talk about also in Berlin and in Dubai is the long straight roads, which enable you to really keep long straight roads, keep your speed and keep your momentum. But as you said, Pat, it's also then difficult to keep your focus, particularly if you're on your own and you're running along there. It's much easier if there's a little bit more of interest and more there's a little to look at in the course. And I think significant in the fact that they've missed out that bridge is that they're missing out the incline and then the decline off it. So they're trying to maintain it as flat and fast as possible. And also, had it been windy, it's not actually windy today. It has been in previous days, but it's not at all today. Then that would have been a factor in terms of breaking up the time running into that headwind.
So just a few seconds until the mass start. They know they're going to get that little bit of TV time they know they're going to get that at the front of that group. Mention it being boring. I mean, there are some phenomenal sights to look at on this route. When you jog past the Burj Al Arab, but when you jog past wonder how on earth you could ever afford to stay there. But these guys and women just seconds away from their 2018 fitness quest, and I mentioned a lot of them are being sponsored, raising vast amounts for all kinds of charities, and that's another of the huge positives about amateur marathon running. Just moving the photographers out the way because I don't want to get stampeded by this lot. And there they go. It could take anywhere from 3 hours to maybe 7 or 8 for some of them. 26 miles, 42 kilometres lie ahead.
I think that might have been a little bit of a false start there, but we'll let them away with that.
Who's counting?
With
Who's well, good luck to each and every one of them, and we're going to be concentrating our coverage on the elite events, which, as far as the men are concerned, they're about halfway, just under halfway in, an hour and a minute on the clock. So we're back with the leading women now. We're just checking on their times. Just under the hour for the first 18 kilometres. Just under the...
Yeah, and that's fast running from the lead women. If you think about it, the 20s are pretty significant. So 5:20 mile in 3:20 kilometers gives you a 2:20 marathon. So they're running sub 2:20 pace significantly for most of this race. And the fast times that we're seeing produced in the men's race are definitely being replicated on the women's side. Maybe took a little bit more of a cautious start to it, but now they've really got into the running. And there's a big pack there together at 2:20 pace, which is significant.
Yeah, just a reminder of the women's course record, 2:19.31, record 2:19.1. That was set by Murgia, who we're still not exactly sure where she is. She didn't appear to be in that leading group. And in fact, although she's won the race 3 times, a couple of those wins were absolute thrillers, one by 3 seconds and one by a single second. So let's hope for some kind of as close a finish as that in about an hour and a quarter's time.
Well, she did say that she was particularly pleased by the 1 second victory, not only for the winning a sprint finish, if you like, but she'd come back from childbirth, the birth of her daughter.
Yeah, I don't think she'd actually run a marathon distance race for nearly 3 years before that either, so it was even more spectacular as a victory. Spectacular as a victory. Pacemakers continuing to take them along, but the pace has dropped, as you can see, down to 8 seconds now in terms of a comparison with the world record. 2:55 the last kilometre.
So that is 61:20 for them, 60 through 21 kilometres, so not quite halfway. That's what, 95 metres, is it? Short of the halfway split, but still very, very close to the time that they were asking for at halfway. And the pack has whittled down yet again. What have we got in there? 2, 4, 6, probably 10 athletes in there, with somebody else just struggling off the back of that group. And then behind that, significant daylight, and you can't actually see a runner back down the road. That's 9 athletes. I think they're in that lead group, with Lemma just struggling to stay on the back, to stay in touch with Gebrselassie. That's not obviously the Gebrselassie, but Lul Gebrselassie, who is hoping to make a big impact on this race and has good pedigree coming into it. Mengistu as well running alongside him.
Yeah, Lemma just trying to hang on at the moment. Tola has just hardly moved, has he, since the start? He looks very, very assured, extremely relaxed. Tura also has been right there from the start. Been right there.
And actually, the 2 pacemakers, Kipyego and Kibito, trying to keep the pace pushing on, and I think that is the other pacemaker, Kipruto, who's dropped back to be sitting just in front of Tola, so actually doing a better job of pacemaking at this stage, because he's sitting closer to where the main athletes are.
I suppose it's worth reminding our listeners and viewers that there have been instances in the past where pacemakers have actually won marathon races because they got so far ahead of the chasing pack, who thought they dropped out, or at least that's what they said they thought had happened, and they said pacemakers ended up winning.
And there is, of course, no rule against that. I think as long as you do the job that you've been asked to do and get the pack through the points that you've been asked to get them to in the designated pace, there's nothing to stop you continuing on and running your race. I think probably the most well known and the first to do that was the guy who almost beat Paul Tergat in Berlin when Paul set the world record and was still running with him through the Brandenburg gates.
And in fact only finished 1 second behind him, Sami Koska, yeah, and Tergat wasn't very happy about that, despite the fact that he set the world record. I think he wanted to, put it out of sight, if you like, and the fact that he had beaten by one of his mates by just 1 second.
Well, I think the significant point is that it's hard to get your head around who you're racing and who you're not racing. So if you think someone's pacemaking, you're far more likely to let them push on, to let them go ahead of you. Whereas if you know that you're racing them, then you're going to, whereas if you know that you're to want to keep asserting your authority over them, and to know in the closing stages, well, I think it's probably pretty obvious once you get to 35k, if someone's still there, you need to start racing them because they're in it for the long run.
Anyone in running shoes is a potential opponent, I think, would be the safest way to look at it. Just about halfway, just before halfway, to be exact, in the women's race. We're just scrolling those in that leading pack, and I don't think Mergia is there. She is not there.
Burka is still in there, so she is running significantly ahead. She is running of her personal best time, although I would suggest that that's up for a little bit of revision. She is a great caliber of athlete, been around for a long time and really showed her pedigree, as I say, with that 358, 1500 meters. She's run 30-40 or thereabouts, so for 10,000 meters, and got medals at championship level, so for 10 on the track. So wants to make that step up to the marathon, very motivated, wants to make that step up later to come and run well here. She was explaining to me last night that if they want to have any chance of selection for Ethiopian teams, they really need to post a fast time over the marathon, and that's why over the marathon many of them want to come here and race Dubai.
Well, 10 years since she won the world indoor 1500 meters, and now running 25 miles further.
So pretty much all the big names, apart from Mergia, in that leading group amongst the women.
And they look very comfortable, don't they, Paula? That's, I mean, it's impressive that they've stayed together in more. That's, I mean, it's impressive that they've in greater numbers than the men have done. Which, the men's a much more attritional race, as you said. With every time we come back, there's somebody dropped off the back of the pack.
Yeah, and this packet in the men's race is starting to spread out a lot more, whereas in contrast in the women, they're still running pretty much in pairs in the road. So I think they have their set out at a pace in the women's race which is more likely to be sustained and continued into the second half, whereas I do think we're going to see some tailing off in this men's race. It has to slow down just because of the sheer pace that they went out at in the first few kilometres and then maintained through the first half of this race.
Yeah, and exactly as we saw a couple of years ago and last year to maybe a slightly lesser extent, exactly at this kind of point in the race, just past halfway, is when they really start to feel it, because they went out so quickly.
Well, worth mentioning the we said the women's course record 2:19:31 by Mergia, and there's only been one other occasion when sub 2:20 has been broken here in Dubai.
It does look at this point as though a fair number of women are on schedule to break that 2:20 mark here today, and in the men's race now, I think we have lost out that third pacemaker, so we're down to two pacemakers at the front of this men's race, and then makers are behind that, as they have been for so much of this race. Tola controlling it with Tura on his shoulder. Alamaru is still in that pack behind, and then it is thinning out. I think it's now lost another couple of runners. I think Lema has gone back down the road, and then a couple of other athletes as well. So it's whittling down, and it's whittling down quickly now at this stage with each kilometre that they tick off.
And I suppose I should apologise to Kibitak. I said he was the slowest of the half marathoners that were in the pacemakers, and he's the one who's still left there out front.
Yeah, he's got his PB as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So if you can pick off on our mics, you can possibly pick the standoff. I think we might be getting a bit of a competition here between the local Dubai bagpipes and the Ethiopian cheer squad that you can see on your screen, that have been very loud and very supportive from the off in this race when there's been very few other people here in the stand. It's starting to fill up a little bit now, and you can hear the bagpipes getting closer.
I wasn't aware that there were Dubai nationals who could play the bagpipes, but they're doing a terrific job here. So clearly it's not something that's exclusive to Scotland, and they are competing, as you say, with the Ethiopian fans who just increased the volume as a result. See, they start them young. So it's down to 7 seconds now inside world record pace for the men, 24 kilometres in.
You say down to 7 seconds, but it's not really slowing down. That's a 2:52 kilometre again for the 24th kilometre. Yes, that's Kvyat, but he's not opened up significant daylight on the group behind him, so they are going with that, and it's very, very fast still.
There we go, just in case you didn't believe us. So we got the kind of equivalent of the regimental sergeant major at the front with the baton. Then we've got the bagpipers, and we've got a couple of drummers at the back as well. Someone needs to invite them to the Edinburgh military tattoo or something next year, I think. I think that's one of the things you notice in Dubai. It is a mix of a load of different cultures. I think it's something like only around 20% of the population are from Dubai originally. So pretty much everyone welcome, regardless of any kind of musical heritage. Back with the women, there's De Geyfer. Looking good, and she's kept Dibaba in her sights pretty much from 6 a.m. this morning, and it's now, what, nearly 7:15.
I mean, she does look as if she's concentrating on her heels, on Dibaba's heels. Amazing.
Yeah, and Dibaba concentrating on the heels of the pacemaker in front of her, and it's pretty much as you have been for these women at this stage in the race. Every time we've come to them, it has been Dibaba running alongside, I think it is Detaya on the far side, but the same athlete she's been running alongside, who is making her debut, I think, over the marathon distance in this race, with De Geyfer sitting behind her, a little bit of a gap back to Dessa on the other side, Dida back to sitting comfortably in between or in the V formation behind De Geyfer and Tesfaye. On the far side you've got Gidey in there, Tedessa. Pace through 21 kilometres was pretty much what they'd asked for, so I think it was round about 6:59:47 through the 21 kilometres, so would have been just around or under the 70 that they asked for. And then they're settling in, slowed a little bit in that 22nd kilometre to 3:22, but it's still around that 2:20 pace, which is what they're aiming for. And then we'll see some more of these women start to move up. Tesfaye there on the near side, starting to make her move forward in this race, but nobody significantly making any sort of inroads or pushing ahead of the pacemakers at this point, as you would expect, because they're quite happy to be running along at this pace, and they will probably start to pick it up from 25 kilometres maybe.
I think the woman on the far side, the taller woman, is De Geyfer, and she's a marathon debutante, and 69:10 half marathon, and she's just done that, hasn't she?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, you look at those in the leading group without Murgia, and you would have to think Dibaba should now be a massive favourite. I mean, you look at her quickest time, 2:19:52. Murgia, 2:19:31, so about 20 seconds quicker in terms of a personal best. But I mean, De Geyfer, who won last year, she's about 3 minutes slower in terms of a PB. So you have to think it's potentially Dibaba's race to lose, even though we're only halfway.
Yeah, although if you look at the look of determination on the face of determination of De Geyfer, I would say that she's definitely come here aiming to retain her title and to make big inroads on her personal best and big improvements on her personal best. It will have stung a little bit that she went on her ran so well, and then if she was injured and unable to race in the autumn, that will be a lot of frustration to put in your winter's training to come back here to Dubai and see what you can do. As we get an idea now, 2:54 for the 25th kilometre in the men's race, so maintaining that schedule in the men's race, so and nobody else has dropped off the back, so they're all hanging in there for the moment.
2:54 for the 25th kilometre, 2:52, wow. This is really, really quick. Still got around about, even if you take out the pacemakers, 7 or 8 in that leading group. Just a question of how long they can keep this going for.
Well, marathon runners will often say that the race begins at 35k, and that's when it begins to get attritional. I'm very impressed with Kipytak. He's really done a terrific job here for a guy that's just set his personal best for the half marathon, and he showed the half. There's no signs of slowing down. Tall figure of Tola is just third behind Kipyego, so he's still maintaining his ascendancy over the racers, if you like, given that Kipytak and Kipyego are the pacemakers.
2:57, the most recent kilometre.
Well, sorry about the picture break-up here. Well, sorry about the picture. Obviously, a few problems with the micro signal from the motorbikes.
But
we got a brief look at. Well, we were trying to get a close-up of Tola, who just does look very, very easy behind the pacemaker Kipytak there.
Doesn't he just? Trying to defend the title that he won last year in such confident style. And he's one of those athletes that just hardly ever seems to have a below par race. Not lately anyway. Seems to have a below par race. So that just gives you an idea of the little entourage that follows the leading group. The car that shows them the time. The motorbikes which bring you these pictures. There's our intrepid cameraman perched on the back of the bike. Rather him than me. Got to trust your driver to do that job, haven't you, really? So single file for the men through, well, nearly an hour and 20.
And it looks as if Kipyego has dropped back or dropped out, and we're reliant now on Kipytak. But he's staying at his pace manfully and still checking that he's on the right time. Well, only 1 kilometre outside 3 minutes, and that was only 3:01. But so some terrific fast running here.
And that is Alain Marou now back behind the psychedelic flashing lead car, dropping back down the road as we see now. Marcel Hu dropping back down the road as we see now, coming down the straight towards the finish. You can't actually see him from here, so I'm trying to work out how far from the finish line he is, but a very, very quick time, as we had indicated, might happen here today, and seems to be well ahead in this race.
Yep, the silver bullet, as they call them, looks to be home and hosed effectively. The first time that he has raced here in Dubai. He is a 9-time world champion, so I guess we shouldn't really be overly surprised. He's a double Olympic gold medalist. Just trying to work out the time. It's around about 1:20 there or thereabouts. The world record is 1:20.14, and he may well be inside that. We'll have to get No, it's just outside. Of course, they started 5 minutes before 7. That was before 6. That was what confused me. But still, a brilliant victory for the Swiss. In just an hour, brilliant victory for the Swiss. 25 and change, and a clenched fist that tells you exactly how he feels about it. And it's very difficult to see anyone behind him at this point. It's like he's absolutely decimated the field here.
Well, I think he was always going to be the favourite for this race when the others persuaded him what a good course it was, and how flat it was, and how smooth it was, and how tarmac was, and well, he certainly won this race by at least 2 or 3 minutes.
So back with the elite men, and our single remaining pacemaker.
He's almost getting annoyed, isn't he? He's like, come on guys, I'm still running the pace that you asked me and you're not going with it. Why aren't you going with it? Well, I think they're finding it a little bit hard work at this point and concentrating now on getting it right over the second half of this race. Any sudden surges or moves made too fast at this point will definitely cause damage in the closing stages, so it needs to be gradual increases, and they really need to be in tune with their own bodies, know exactly, they need to be in tune with their where they are in regards to that fine line that you can go over very easily in a marathon and just produce too much debris and lactic acid in your body that your body can't handle and can't get rid of, and keep moving in the second stage of second half of this marathon.
And they can't
keep moving in the second.
Can't even be thinking about times at this point, can they? I mean, with half a dozen guys in there, it's, you know, who's going to. Can't even be thinking about times at this point, can they? I mean, with half be first.
This is Yamamoto, the Japanese, coming home in second place in the wheelchair event. And as Pat was saying, he's going to be fully 2 minutes behind Hug, but still a very decent performance. 1:27.20, so yeah, pretty much exactly 2 minutes. 27 off Hug's pace. And no sign yet of the third place behind Yamamoto. We'll try and nip back and see that if we can. So still, Dibaba in the middle of your shot, and right behind her, the defending champion, Worknish Tegefa, where she's been the entire race so far.
Well, I've just got a message here. It seems that Mergia has dropped out, which I think we presumed, but I'm not sure at what kilometre.
Well, that'll be a big disappointment for her. It'll be a Just scrolling the latest positions for you amongst the women.
That still is a very big pack of women, as we see Dibaba again struggling to get her drink. You'd think the amount of experience that she had, she would have got a little bit better at finding her drink on those tables. It is the same table for each one, so the athletes at the technical meeting the night before are given a plan telling them exactly which of the, I think 8 tables out there today, their drinks bottle will be on and which position it will be at on that table, so they should be able to get to their bottle and find it fairly easily. You can see some of the athletes will decorate their bottle to enable them to locate it a little bit more easily. The Japanese athletes actually used to put a hoop over the top so they could run along, slide their arm through the hoop, and then keep running and get their bottle. So they were very, very well drilled and well skilled at finding and locating their bottle. And you can see very, very well drilled and well skilled at finding, as we look at the Burj Al Arab they're building there, just how much of a haze or mist there is around this morning. Whether that's going to have any impact on this race, it certainly doesn't look as though it's having a significant impact on the times that they're running so far.
Well, I suppose, Paul, that you were always so far ahead that you didn't have to worry about bumping into people to get your water bottle.
Yeah,
it is difficult. I've had a couple that have dropped. Your hand can slip. It is difficult. I've had a couple that have dropped on the bottle, and we've seen it happen so many times. And I think it was DeBarbara in one of the London marathons actually went back to get her bottle, because you are faced with that dilemma. If you miss it, do you go back and get it? It's very important in the early stages, particularly in the first half of the marathon, to make sure that you stay well fueled and well hydrated. Humidity, as we've talked about, it's not hot out here today, but it is quite humid, so they will be losing fluid. It is quite humid, so they will be, and so trying to keep that on board. It is a skill, and it's something that also needs to be mastered. It's something that the likes of Mo Farah will have to work on as they move up towards the marathon, is getting that drink, being able to drink while running at significant pace, and your body being able to absorb as much of it as you can.
Just a brief word, if you have watched our coverage over the past few years, you probably have watched our coverage, remember some quite dramatic aerial shots that we brought you. Well, unfortunately, we're not allowed to send the helicopter up today because it's just too misty. So although we've got an ace pilot, he is not allowed to get the chopper up. So that's why you're not seeing any aerial shots, in case you were wondering. Just going back to, we've been talking about Mo Farah. There's someone else I want to talk to you about, Paul, in terms of the women's marathon in particular. Gwen Jorgensen, who, for those who don't know, is a multiple triathlon world champion, a phenomenal runner, and she has decided to quit triathlon because she wants to try and win a gold medal by winning the marathon in the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. Now, first of all, I think it's a pretty brave decision. What do you think of her chances? And were you quite surprised that someone who's clearly brilliant at her primary sport is making the move to marathon running?
I guess a little bit. She has shown her pedigree as we look back, and I guess a little bit. On your screens you're seeing, I think it's third, fourth and fifth come in. Your screens you're seeing, I think it's third wheelchair race. But getting back to Gwen, I mean, she's shown her pedigree. She's raced well over 10 miles. She raced the New York Marathon and ran, I think, 2:41 there. That's a big jump to talk about making that leap up to Olympic medal territory in the women's marathon. Do you want to talk in there?
Yeah, we'll just leave that for the moment and watch the conclusion to the battle for third.
As we go through the day as well, further up by the match on the X1.
You?
So Ernst van Dijk it is, finishing third. 10-time Boston Marathon winner. So that's your 1, 2, 3 now in the wheelchair race. Probably the strongest field that they've ever had, and as you can see, there is a genuine spirit of camaraderie there after the effort that they put in over the last hour and a half or so. So that's the first 1, 2, 3 of the day decided. Of course, the elite men have got another half an hour elite men plus out there, and the elite women slightly longer. Just going back to Gwen Jorgensen briefly, Paula. She ran, I think, ran about 2:40, didn't she, in New York? She's going to have to improve massively on that if she wants to have any chance of getting a medal.
Yes, she is. I mean, New York isn't a fast course, so you've already got to think there's probably 5-6 minutes easily made up there just by running on a quicker course. But still, that's a big leap to talk about being world class over the marathon. I mean, it's something we've seen before. The example of Carolina Kluft, who was so dominant in the women's heptathlon, and then decided she was going to go and concentrate on individual events, the long jump, for her personal satisfaction. And that may be what Gwen's decided to do. She's really almost without rival in the really triathlon, and maybe she just wants to taste that competition a little bit more and to see what she can do over the marathon distance. I think time will tell, and first time will tell, and job for her is going to be getting herself into the territory where she can even think about making an American team to go to the Olympic Games before she can talk about trying to make Olympic medals.
It'll be a fascinating story that plays out over the next 2.5 years or so as we head towards Tokyo 2020. Still a very large group of women leading the way, and we're nearly an hour and a half in now. You can see them an hour and approaching the 27-kilometre mark. Burka towards the back with Gudetta. Desse right in the mix. Cisse Jessa we haven't talked about either, and she is in that leading group. Fourth here last year with the second fastest time of her career. She has won a marathon previously in Guangzhou in 2013. But
now we get a view from the other side. As you can see, the splits clicking through there. There's that tantalising 1 second outside of the 220 barrier, which is just adding up. But they did have that margin from the first half, so very consistent and very good running by a lot of these women. Now we can see on that side that is Rosa de Gers. These women, now we can see on that Sarah, who has been running alongside Dibaba for much of this race, and as I talked about earlier, she races a lot. Last year she raced Dubai in January, then on to Vienna in April, and Shanghai in November, and so that's only 11 weeks from now, and she's bouncing back from a very, very good performance there, a personal best of 2:22 in Dubai, and clearly has recovered well to be running at the front for so much of this race and looking so comfortable alongside Mara Dibaba.
Well, let's hope they stay together for a long time. We get some kind of a thrilling finish with those two, or a couple from in behind, because there are some decent sprinters there as well. If Dibaba and potentially De Geyfer can't get away at some point.
Well, you've still got Tefera sitting in that pack, and she's got a 14:28:29 5-kilometre time, so easily the class of this field, if you like, if it comes down to that final sprint for the line. Although a sprint in a marathon, I will caution, is not the same as a sprint on a track, and what you have left in your legs in the closing stages of your legs marathon is very, very different to what you might have in the last lap of a 5,000 metres on the track.
So from the women to the men, and our pacemaker seems to be going further away every time we get a shot of the leaders. Further away every time we...
This is when alarm bells might start ringing if you're in that pack there. When you start to get past 25k, I'd say certainly when you get past 30k, if that pacemaker's still out ahead, although he is looking around, he's definitely checking on the pack behind him. But if he stays out that far ahead, this is the point where he's thinking, you know what, shall I just carry on? I feel good here, I'm going to just keep going.
Well, there have been several examples of it in the past, you know, whether it has to go to 25k, 30k, or even 35k 5 when the race is supposed to really begin. And, you know, I mean, what has he got now? 20, 25, 30, probably maybe 50 metres at the moment. He's certainly not doing a pacing 5, 30, probably maybe 50 metres at the job there.
Well, the only thing worthwhile mentioning is that the pacemakers do get a significant bonus if they do a pacemaking job in a world record attempt. So he has a vested interest in not only getting to the points that he's been asked to get to in the designated time, but in making sure that there are some guys with him who have a very good chance of going on to hit that world record. So I think that's why he's trying to pull them on. He can sense that they're maybe slipping back a little bit, and he's trying to encourage them on as well as he can at this stage in the race, but there's not a huge amount of interest from that pack behind him.
Well, there is that pack with the big names in it. Tola, who's just hardly moved a muscle in terms of staying exactly where he wants to be for an hour and a half plus. Where he wants to be. He looks extremely composed. I don't think he's going to be bothered at the moment that the pacemakers clear. Tura, who's running an impressive race for one so young and so inexperienced at this distance. There's Lemmer at the back, who's done well to hang on. Looked like he was struggling a bit earlier.
Well, Tola did say that he'd like to run under 2:04 this year, which means that he's exactly 30 minutes away from the finish if he's going to prove himself right.
Well, you don't imagine he's going to be far away from it either way. Just missed it by a whisker last year. It was 11 seconds outside going inside 2:04.
And significant too, I think, when you're running a marathon, often you enter that last half an hour and you think, okay, I can do this. Half an hour run is what a lot of these guys will do on their recovery runs. So it's something that's completely manageable, but when you have pushed your body to the limit in the first hour and a half of the race, then it's a different story, and half an hour can feel like a very long time to be hanging on, and there's still a lot of significant racing to be done in this race to really sort these men out from one another.
Well, for our older viewers, Jim Hogan, an Irish guy that ran in Britain for many, many years, he won the European Marathon in 1966, and he used to train down along the Thames out at Richmond, and he said that he was really suffering. It was pretty hot championships, over 50 years ago. And he said he just visualized running along the last half a dozen miles along the River Thames towards Kew and the haven of the gardens. And I mean, is that something that you ever had to do? This is just a training run the last half an hour. It's just
yes and no. I mean, I think definitely I would think that when I got into the last half an hour, okay, this is half an hour, I can do this, I can get through this. But in terms of the focus, I mean, on training runs, your mind can be drifting all over the place. And in a race, you have to be very, very focused on the splits. I used to like to really map out the closing stages of the race in my mind, so to know where a mile to go. Big Ben is 1,200 meters to go, so 1,200 meters to go from there, and really kind of gauge it really well, so you're getting every last ounce of energy out of your body in the closing stages of the race. But these guys are away from that at this point, so now it is about trying to almost take your mind away from the pain that is certainly coming from parts of your body, and just to focus on what you need to focus on. So making sure that you get those vital drink station bottles, and that you tick off those kilometers and really count down. And that's nice in the marathon, when you get to the point where instead of counting up, you're counting down, and you're starting to sense the finish line drawing closer.
So Lemmer's gone to the front of that little group. Mengstu on the left as we look, the Gesse in behind. Gesse. Well, that is enthusiasm and stamina. It's almost equally as impressive as the runners, because they've been there doing that since before 6 o'clock this morning. They're here every year. And they pretty much know an Ethiopian's going to win in the men's and the women's race, don't they?
Yeah, they've got a very good chance and very good odds on that, but they are an Ethiopian cheer squads you see all over the world. Wherever there is all over the world, where a huge big road race going on, or any kind of race, there will be an Ethiopian cheer squad with some drums and with some singing going on there. I think they used to follow Haile Gebrselassie around wherever, and a big reflection on the fact that, as we were saying earlier, athletics and road running is the #1 sport in road running in Ethiopia. And much as you'll see, I guess, English football fans follow their team all around, you'll see the Ethiopian cheer squad follow the Ethiopian athletes wherever they are in the globe.
Of course, the difference is that the England football fans haven't earthly whether their team's going to win or not, whereas these people know they're going to be celebrating in about half an hour's time.
Well, the next big international event on the calendar is the World Indoor Championships in Birmingham in the UK at the beginning of March, and a contingent will be there for sure.
Well, you can see the pacemaker has dropped out, so it's down to the class of the field, if you like, now to sort it out between them. 7 or 8 in that leading group. Most of the names that you would have expected to see are there.
Well, we haven't seen the kilometre times for the last couple of K, and it does look a little bit more sedate, but it's much more interesting now because these guys are in a race. They're into the last 7 or 8 kilometres. They're into, and I mean, they're starting to get wary, obviously, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're starting to definitely feel the pace and to look around also within that pack and see who else is still there, who's been able to hang with this. A lot of these guys will train together as well, so they'll be used to running alongside each other, and they'll be used to kind of picking up the signs for when the other guys are hurting, when they're pushing close to their limit, and when they're still got a little bit left and they're still running within themselves. I think Tola's still looking very, very, very good. Tura has been there throughout the race and is really looking smooth. Mengistu is starting to look a little bit more laboured, I think, than he did earlier in the race, but it's inevitable at this point that these guys are going to look as though they're working hard, because they are working guys are going to look very, very hard.
And how much does the psychology of it come into play, Paul? I mean, this kind of stage of a race, we're an hour and 40 minutes in, there's a leading group of 7. Are the runners kind of looking across thinking, oh, he looks like he's relaxed, oh, he looks like he might be struggling a bit. There must be some of that goes on. He's relaxed, oh, he looks like he might be...
Yeah, there's definitely mind games that go on within the race. I mean, when they're running at a very, very fast pace, maybe less so than a slower race. A slower pace, as we get a look at what they're calling a very tight turn, but which in comparison to the hairpin turns that they had, for example, on the World Championship course in London, it isn't significantly tight, and it hasn't really slowed these guys down as they've gone around that. But they will be, looking at each other, assessing, trying to, for example, when they go and pick up their drinks bottles, making it look really easy, maybe offering it around a little bit to say, okay, I don't need this, I'm fine, I'm doing really well, are you? But less so than it would be in a slow race, where you're starting to almost play a cat and mouse game and wait for someone to make a move. These guys have committed, they've made their move, they've shown that they believe they're in shape by going with this pace and by still being there at this stage in the race. So I think there's a respect as well as mind games going on. These guys always respect each other, that they're all still there at this pace, and they will start now maybe to even help each other out a little bit in terms of working together. The pacemaker's gone, so they'll work together to try and keep it on the pace. But it is Tola who has been controlling this really from the start, and he's now pushing it on a little bit and seeing who else amongst that group is able to go with it.
Well, I won't mention any names here, but a couple of Irish internationals who used to train together, national and middle and long distance runners. And one guy said of his colleague, and this guy never used to sweat. He said it was amazing, it really used to annoy me. He said, but when he did, he said he'd just get a spot in the center of his t-shirt, right, in the middle of his chest. And he said, and I always thought, okay, now I've got you.
That's good. I tell you what, the performance so far of Seyfu Tura is really impressive. We talked about his inexperience at this level, but I mean, you look at some of his times. PB for a half marathon, nigh on 63 minutes. He's run 29:05 for 10,000. That was in high altitude, but this is kind of uncharted territory for him, really, in a race of this caliber. With all due respect to the marathon field in Seoul, and he's still right there with less than half an hour to go.
Just over 7 kilometers left to go. Oh, and then Mengistu caused a little bit of trouble as he cut across to try and get his bottle. I think Tola is okay, but he was certainly impeded within that. I'm trying to see, has he got it? Has he managed to pick up his own bottle in the middle of all that fracas? Because I think Mengistu realised a little bit too late. You can see Valentin, one of the managers there, trying to make sure that his athletes have got their drinks bottles as they've come through there. But yeah, I think that maybe crept up on them a little bit, that 35k drink station. A couple of the guys caught unawares and panicked a little bit trying to cut across, and we've seen fallers trying to in the past at drink stations. It can be a tricky and dangerous area to negotiate, and hopefully they've all come through that unscathed.
Well, he looks okay, Tola, but that was a potentially anxious moment. Let's just have another look at it. You see Tola there on the right into the runner in front of him. It could have been a end of race, basically.
And it still could be significant. I think when you're forced to check yourself, brake and twist as he did there, then that's dangerous for hamstrings that are already starting to cramp up, quads that can be too. So hopefully he's okay. We'll get an idea now in the next couple of kilometres. If damage has been done there, then it will start to show.
So Mengstu up front from Lagesse. Young Ventura in behind. Tola at the back of that pack now. And it must have disrupted his rhythm, even if it hasn't, physically done any damage. Let's hope he can get that rhythm back. He's still in touch, which is the main thing.
Well, I suppose the best example of what looked like a cataclysmic fall was the great Finn cataclysmic Lassie Viren, who actually was bowled over during the Olympic 10,000 metres. The first gold medal that he had won at 10K. He got up, broke the world record and won the gold medal.
Yeah, I remember seeing Alistair Brownlee in a triathlon fall down in South Africa and get up and win. I thought you were going to talk about Zola Budd and Mary Decker-Slaney for a minute, but that wasn't something she was able to recover from.
And of course neither of them won.
Indeed.
Well, Decker didn't even finish, of course.
Still that big pack in the this race. Still Burka looking very, very comfortable in there. I'm looking to see if Tefera is still in there. Still De Gever. Can you see Debaba? Is Debaba got? Either Mara Debaba has dropped off that group, or she's slightly ahead of that group, because I can't see her in it on that shot at the moment, and she had looked so comfortable at the moment for so much of the race up to this point. Malaise is still there, De Gever is still there, Tedesco is on the far side, Rosa Tejera is still there, Dida, Tesfaye, but I can't see any sign of Mara Debaba.
Well, that's a big shock potentially if Debaba is out of contention, because every time we've looked at that leading women's group, she's appeared to be very relaxed and not having a problem. I guess as soon as you take anything for granted in this sport, it's potentially problematic. That leading group, significantly fewer women in it than we've seen for most of the race.
As you'd expect at this point, because it is starting to whittle down, but I could see one of the pacemakers just drifted over to the far side of the road and was looking back and looking around. So maybe it was Debaba he was looking for, maybe not, but he was certainly having a look to assess who is it left in this group, and maybe what pace he should continue to keep it moving along at.
Well, we've told you already that Mergia, the three-time champion here, is out the race. It looks as though Debaba, even if she's not out the race, is out of contention.
Actually had a look at any of the recent splits from this women's race either, to get some idea of whether the pace is maintained or whether it has dropped off a little bit. I would suggest that it has been maintained, if not picked up, because it has whittled down, and there are certainly fewer women in that group than there last time that we came to it, and Debaba is not there, so there have been some significant changes in this pack. Just incidentally, you could see two of the girls there passing the drinks bottle between themselves. I think the rules have now been relaxed a little bit. You didn't used to be able to pass drinks bottles. Now you can, so long as it isn't consistent, which the wording's a little bit ambiguous, but I think it means that you can't consistently go and get a drinks bottle for somebody else and hand it to them. So else a little bit as a domestique would do in a cycling race. That can't happen, but if you do see that someone has dropped their bottle, you are allowed now to hand it to them.
Well, Tola is back at the front of that group, so that push, if you like, or that stumble that that he was forced into by Mengistu doesn't seem to have affected him at this juncture.
Laguesse is still looking very comfortable in that group as well. It's very, very hard to tell by looking at their faces just how hard these guys are working. I think maybe it is something that's particular to Ethiopian runners, but it is something that they do always look very, very relaxed and in control, even when they're not, as it were, even when they're struggling to stay with it. But you can see as they go through 37 kilometers, the 2:58, so the pace has slowed and they've slipped outside of that world record by about a minute now, so it puts them right around that 2:4 mark. So it puts them right around, which is maybe why Tola's starting to move to the front. He was very keen to break through that 2:04 barrier, so if he's going to do that, he's going to have to get moving and start pushing along now.
It'll be a great effort if he does from here, because technically it'll mean just under 14 more minutes of running to complete the 2018 Dubai Marathon. And he's going to have to do most of the work himself, it seems. The main priority, of course, is winning the race. He wants to defend that title, and he's put himself in absolutely pole position to do exactly that right at the business end of proceedings here.
I mean, do you think, Paula, that it makes any difference that this guy's proved himself as a medalist at the Olympic Games, a medalist at the World Championships, and a winner here last year? I mean, would you say that people who've proved themselves winners in the past have got to be favourites, however marginal?
Yeah, I think they definitely come in with an edge. I mean, I think probably the best example of that is Mo Farah, and the way that he almost seems to dominate psychologically the rest of the field when he comes to a final on the track. It'll be a different story in the marathon, and he'll have to re-establish himself there to have any chance of having that sort of control, if you like, over the rest of the field. But I think amongst the guys in that pack, there is definitely a respect for Tola, for what he's achieved on the track and for the way he's translated that to the marathon. In contrast to that, it's very different to this stage in the race last year, when he really won the race, the only one surviving that fast early pace. Here he's got a lot of company around him, a lot of people who have been able to absorb that and to live with it. So in his mind, he's got to be asking those questions: how much have they got left? But they are also almost looking to him to make the first move at this point in the race, because he is the one that they respect and the one that they would expect to make a move. If he doesn't make it soon, then one of them might just try their own hand.
Well, he certainly hasn't got away. He might be just quite content to do this for another couple of kilometres or so. Eremu on the right, we know, has a quick time, or quickish time, not as fast as Tola. Mengistu and Laguesse just in behind. Just under 3 minutes for kilometre number 38.
Well, Mengistu is currently running at about 4 minutes better than his personal best, so that's already some effort on his behalf.
And we've still got Lul Gebrselassie as well on the far side, who's making his debut. Does have that 59:18 half marathon pedigree, so for him it's been a walk in the park for that first half of this race, and he's certainly handling his first marathon very, very well and starting to put himself right up there, maybe amongst the favourites in this group as they come into the closing stages. Back to the women's race, still Tesfaye, still Rosa de Reja there, and still De Geefer on the far side. Geleta Burke also still looking very, very good, and still certainly got to be running close to a personal best, I would say, for her in that race, and acquitting herself so very, very well in this marathon.
So having negotiated the turn, leading women head towards the last, 4 or 5 kilometres.
Well, the sun is coming up now, but it's probably a degree or so warmer than it was when we began, but it's still not a searing heat that's really going to make any significant difference at this point.
Not at all. I think it's very good conditions for marathon running out there. As the sun comes up, that humidity has probably started to drop a little bit, but it certainly feels like that standing here, and maybe more comfortable conditions, although for the women maybe more, and the men as the race is wearing on. Of course, it's getting tougher and tougher for them, as it inevitably would do. It was interesting just watching there. I think it was Tesfaye just trying to squeeze through the middle of the 2 runners in front of her, as if there's not enough road around as if they go around the outside, and she's trying to just squeeze her way through the middle. But I think it's very indicative of the training conditions that these Ethiopian women and the Ethiopian men train in, on a lot of times on very, very narrow trails where they do run just single file all the time, so they're just focusing on the heels of the runner in front, and when they come to races they seem to just slot into that mindset very, very easy. They seem to just
We saw Rosa de Reja in that leading group of women, only a second appearance here. She was 6th 12 months ago. She's won the last 2 Shanghai marathons, and she actually took 5 minutes off her personal best in that race in 2016. 2:22:43 PB now. Burke towards the back of that group.
Well, she could be running about 5 minutes faster than she's ever run as a marathon before. We're about 24 to 25 minutes from the end of this women's race.
trying to get an idea from that 35k. I'm just trying to get a split, and I think they are still certainly on, if not just under 2:20 pace in this women's race, and running very, very strongly. So Rosa de Reja is certainly on pace to significantly challenge and improve her personal best, as is Geleta Burke behind that. Hers is only 2:26, so that's definitely up for revision out there today.
So back with the men, an hour and 57 in. So back with the men. No dramas for Tola that time at the water table. Mengistu at the front now. They're just asking a few questions with they're just asking only about 6 or 7 minutes of running to go now.
Yeah, we can see the first questions being asked by Mengistu, and you can see the other questions looking around. Toure is the first really to significantly fall off that pack that's been together for the last couple of kilometres.
Which is no real surprise given his inexperience.
No, not really at all. But Tola very significantly reacted quite quickly to that kind of stretch out by Mengistu. I don't think it was a significant break yet. Maybe they were waiting and significant until they've cleared this 40-kilometre drink station. So the last of their personalised drinks, if you like, the ones that they've been able to hand in the night before that have what they've practiced in training in them. So they are able to get those personal drinks now, and now the real racing happens in the last 2 kilometres.
Well, that mist has really risen now, but it does put me in mind of the 2013 race when we had 5 guys emerging from the mist in the last street. It was a different finish back then, about a kilometre away from here. But that's the best collective finish that I've ever seen in the 20-odd or the 19 years of this Dubai race, and potentially we've got a similar scenario coming up here. Well,
it's going to be a fascinating finale, that is for sure. Yeah, it wasn't really a searching question that Mengistu asked, was it, with that little break? It was more of a kind of a polite inquiry, and it was answered in the affirmative by the likes of Tola and Gesse.
Gebrselassie there, I think, still looks pretty good, shadowing Tola. Tola, you can see, starting to focus a little bit more. He's looked very, very relaxed, as most of them have throughout the race, but Mengistu actually looks as though he's working the hardest with that look of determination. So he gets his head down, and maybe he knows that this is the point he has to make this surge, because if the other guys are still there coming into the last kilometre or so, maybe he feels that this is his best chance now to really try and make it a long wind up from here on in to the finish.
2 hours into the race, and there are still 6 good men and true in that leading group. And we haven't mentioned Lemmer of late. He's done really well to hang on in there, because he was apparently struggling earlier, and he's got a very good CV in terms of previous performances in Dubai. Previous 3rd here last year. He's at a 5th, a 4th and a 3rd in the back of that group, but not far off the pace.
And at this juncture, you know, the personal bets don't count for anything. I mean, this is just a race to the death now between these, a race to this sextet.
It hasn't been an impressive race of survival as well, given how fast they went. It's certainly even in the first 5 kilometres, but in the first half of this race. And Tola now goes back to the front and raises us back to an even bigger cheer from the Ethiopian cheer squad here at the finish, who are watching on the big screen.
Just looking around to see where the main danger was lurking. Tamirat Tola. And now he's the one asking the questions. Mengistu looks to be struggling a little bit. Lemmer trying to come on the left-hand side of your screen. That's a really good effort from him. Really good. And Geremu on the right also looking good. This is good. This could be an absolute thrilling finish here.
This is where Tola also has an advantage, because he knows the course, and when you know the course in the closing stages of this race, that hasn't changed with stage with the revisions they've made to the course this year. So he's run this a couple of times now. He knows how to get this a couple of right in the run up to the finish, and the others are looking to him a little bit to let him dictate that, but Geremu is still a little bit to looking good.
Well, it's still very hard to call it. Geremu in the orange. Call it. Tola on the far side as we look. And once they make the turn, they have about 500 metres to go. And Lemmer trying to veer up on the shoulder of Tola. Gebrselassie looking strong on the left now. And Geremu hasn't finished either. And now Tola just going to have to really focus here because they're laying down the gauntlet to him, and Gebre Selassie looks the strongest of the four, maybe. Gebre Selassie, Geremu, Lemma and Tola. It looks to be between those four. And they're almost side by side. Look at this. Gebre Selassie on the left could just be ahead, but it's very hard to tell, and there isn't much in it. Tola is really struggling. Geremu coming, Tola, Gebre Selassie. He's struggling. Geremu coming, Tola, Gebre Selassie and Geremu almost stride for stride, and Tola straining to try and get to them. Lemma is back and forth at the moment. Haven't seen a finish like this for a long, long time. Geremu in the middle, Tola on the right, Gebre Selassie digging in for all he's worth. But it's Geremu who has the advantage now. He's asking all the questions. He's a couple of yards clear and trying to go away. Gebre Selassie's the only man who can run him down, but he's not going to do it. This is up and run him down, but he's not. Phenomenal performance. Inside 2 minutes and 2 hours and 4. Geremu wins. Gebre Selassie, that's a really good display from him. Another shot result in the Dubai Marathon. What a finish that was. What a...
Well, I talked about the 2013 finish being good, but that was absolutely terrific. That's the best finish I've ever seen in the Dubai Marathon.
And Geremu deserved that, didn't he? He was fighting as much maybe to try and dip under the 2:04, but certainly to get that course record as he was to get the victory. But he was maybe didn't even notice the clock given the battle that he was in to get to that finish line. He kept his powder dry for so much of that race, really didn't make any moves until that final one in the final straight.
It's amazing, isn't it, how this race just continually throws up surprising results. That was another one. And in a really good time as well. We were talking about Gebre Selassie on more than one occasion in that race. You always thought it was going well, Paul, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think when you come in with the pedigree that he came in with over the half marathon distance, when you've got a 59.18 in your legs and you're still there in the closing stages, then you've got to be in with a good chance. And I think he thought he did, but he was just caught out, if you like, by just how much Geremu had left and how much he was able to fight and to raise it in that closing straight. I don't think that Gebre Selassie finished badly by any means. He ran extremely well, and well, obviously he's running personal best because it's his debut, but he's well, and probably, I'm not sure what the fastest debut time ever is, but I think he's probably got to be fastest debut time ever is, but I think close to that with that run there today. And you can see Tola gave it everything, and you can see Tola gave it maybe he just controlled it and tried to stamp his authority on it a little bit too much in the second half of that race, but he just didn't have quite enough in his legs to be able to live with those other two guys in the closing stages of the race.
Well, I mentioned earlier on that Geremu ran 2:06.12 in only his year on, that Geremu ran 2:06 ever marathon in Berlin, so he keeps on progressing, and that is a real warning for the likes of Kimetto and others, that the likes of, there's a new kid on the block. Brilliant performance from him.
Well, Tola looked pretty disconsolate on the floor there, yet he's done everything that he promised to do, but finished third.
Absolutely left nothing out there. Just beaten on the day by two better men, I guess you'd have to say.
And just look at this huge gap behind those guys. Still nobody else in the finishing straight at this juncture.
So the leading women are around about 13 minutes or so from hitting the tape on the line, and Dessay and Tesfaye and Rosa Dereje we mentioned, who's right up and up there. Looks like 6 of them, with Tesfaye trying desperately to hang on at the back.
And the 3 pre-race favourites have all gone by the board. Mergia dropped out. We're pretty sure Dibaba must have dropped out too.
You still have Taghafa in there though, who is the defending champion and still looking good at this stage, though I would say that Rosa Dereje is looking very, she's just sat there the whole race looking very composed, slightly higher arm carriage than the other girls around her in that race. That's not that unusual. Around, I guess Mary Keitany is also known for running with quite a high arm carriage, and it's what she's used to, and it's working very well for her to this point.
Well, we know that the men's course record has gone. Men's course, I wonder whether the women can do the same. 2:19:31 is the course record for the women. As Gebri Selassie finished a very creditable second. A very creditable.
Malaysia still in 3rd in that place, was 3rd in this race last year, so she also has the knowledge of this course that we were talking about, the Taghafa has, and that probably is going to be significant amongst these women who knows this course well and who can judge it right, because as we saw in the men's race just a few moments ago, judging it to perfection when there's still 4 women together at this stage in the race, to perfection when there's still race is going to be important.
It's looking a bit clearer now. That 7th looking a bit Star Hotel, the Burj Al Arab, shrouded in mist earlier, but 2 hours and 10 minutes into the race we can finally see it in all its glory.
This is promising to be as good a finish as in the men's race, and I think we can safely say it's going to be an Ethiopian woman who's going to win, as well as an Ethiopian man, if not top 3 too.
Yeah, their dominance is almost ridiculous at times. It's Dereje up the front. Elise just on the right-hand side in the orange vest.
Just looking back down the road there, you can still see just in the background in the yellow calf socks, the bright yellow calf socks, is Galeta Burka, so she's still hanging in. I mean, that's too far now for even a 3:58 1500 meter runner to have a chance of making that back up on this lead group, but she still has had a very good run there today.
Well, it looks like 3 medals to be decided by the 4 of them, or between the 4 of them, or between the. And Taghafa right where she would want to be. She's seen Mergia fall by the wayside, Dibaba fall by the wayside, but she's still got work to do.
And that is the 40-kilometer drink stations going by. They were running by there, so it means 2 kilometers to go, which means they are on sub 2:20 pace, so course record is definitely on, and personal best for I think all of these women. Rosa DeRaja now almost urging on Namo, the pacemaker, trying to get him to push on a little bit. I think if she's going to push on at this stage, she's going to have to do that on her own now, and it's the time to be striking out and doing the work on your own as they approach now the 40-kilometre mark. So, and they go over here, that is exactly mark. 2 kilometres, 195 metres to go.
Well, De Geef is going to absolutely obliterate a personal best, 2:22.36. But more importantly, from her point of view, it's whether she can outmaneuver these other three women and defend the title that she won so memorably and surprisingly 12 months ago.
Well, a minor point, the pacemaker himself is only a 2:26 marathoner, so he's actually running a personal best too, so he might as well fit us.
He could move off to the side a bit though, couldn't he, and let the women race it out a little bit amongst themselves. It looks as though Tedesco is struggling to go with it. Her split through the 40-kilometre was still with these women, but she's dropped out of the shot now, so it looks like the out of the medals have been decided, but how those medals are going to pan out is still very much up to be played for.
Well, it still looks like he's enjoying himself, that pacemaker, doesn't he? He's been grinning around, enjoying himself. The three women with him.
And it looks as though he's looking around now and actually giving information to DeRaja about who's left there at the moment. And here's Melesa, who's sitting right behind him. I don't know if he's even aware. He has to turn right round almost 180 degrees to be able to see that she's there. He used to be in his slipstream and still with them at the moment, but it looks now to be down to these two.
It does indeed. That the last kind of 500 or 600 metres has put these two ahead of the other two that were in that leading group, and you've got to say Rosa DeRaja looks absolutely superb at the moment. After nearly 2¼ hours, there is clear daylight between her and Aniris Pursuers.
And if you look at those 5k splits up on the screen there, you can see how that race has progressed in contrast to the men's race. This race has got faster and faster as it's gone on, and the fastest split yet between 35 and 40 kilometres, 16:20, which is approaching 2:15 pace, if not on it, and that's why it's done the damage that it has, and that's why you've seen Rosa DeRaja that's pulled away and clear of the rest of the women in this field, and it's going to be in the end I think being a comfortable victory for her.
Well, she's hardly breaking sway. Got that lovely languid rhythm, and none of the chasers making any impact. In fact, she's going further and further away, almost with further and further every stride.
Well, she looks so good that there's little chance of her now being caught or failing to win, wouldn't you think?
Well, she does look very, very composed. As we've talked about, though, sometimes that appearance can be deceptive. People can look composed even when they're falling apart inside, and other people can look as though they're falling apart and they're still holding it together very, very well, still holding it. So pretty much the only person who can get this wrong now is her. If she's misjudged this slightly coming into the finish, but it doesn't look like she has. She's kept herself in a very good position all the way through this race. She's about to make the turn now into the finishing straight and still looks comfortable, maybe starting to sway a little bit with her shoulders, a little bit more than she was earlier on in this race, but that's of course inevitable, and you can see how much the gap has grown, and now it's Melesa who's paying for having tried to go with her and trying to stay with her, and she's slipped back from second to third.
And she's in the last kilometre now. Surely there's only about 3 minutes left to run, and with that camera foreshortening, there's got to be at least 50 metres there.
Yeah, it looks a done deal unless something quite spectacular happens. She's a fascinating performer, DeRaja. I mean, I mentioned she'd won a couple of Shanghai marathons, the first of which she took around about 5 minutes off her personal best, and her personal best going to get absolutely obliterated again today. 2:23, 2:43. She's going to be several minutes inside that.
And it is only 11 weeks as well since that personal best that she's run, so that's a very quick turnaround on top of a year in which she's run 3 marathons already. So coming back to here, having run 3 in 2017, that's a lot of marathons at a young stage in your career. Marathons certainly announcing her arrival as one to be watched on the women's marathoning scene.
So the race looks for 2nd and 3rd at the moment. Dereji incidentally 6th in this race last year. And looks as if she's going to turn that into a win this time.
Well, if she looks behind her, she'll see there's not a great deal of danger. Tedeschi currently in that 2nd place. Must be a great feeling, Paula, and one you would know when you know you've got the race won, and you can kind of enjoy the little, well, not kind of, I wouldn't say stroll, but the last 500 metres or so.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's still a last 500 metres or so that probably can't go fast enough for these women who have worked very, very hard, and they can now see the finish, and they're trying to just summon up every last ounce of energy. I'm not sure why Dereji keeps checking her watch at this point in the race. She can see clocks in front of her, she can see the finish line, so she really just wants to be trying to get to that line as fast as possible. She's got the race run, and now it's Namo as well who's checking his watch, so maybe they just don't trust the official timing out there today.
Tedeschi at least keeping her honest, and Malese chasing down Tedeschi to try and get into 2nd place, but Beresia with a very healthy advantage as we come towards 2:19 on the clock, and she can see the finish line clearly in sight. This is going to be well inside the course record. The course record is 2:19.31, and here she comes, Rosa Desire, who is putting a superb performance here to win the Dubai Marathon, and the course record has been smashed. And she'll turn around and have a reasonably long wait. She'll turn around. The sea is going to follow her in for 2nd and 3rd. That's a great shot. I think it was Tedeschi in 2nd, Malese in 3rd. We'll confirm that for you. There's Tedeschi.
Yeah, it was Tedeschi followed by Malese, and now to give last year's winner going to cross the line in that 4th position, but still a significant personal best for her. They're still coming in under 2:20. I can see Galeta Burka running up the finishing straight. She's just going to miss out on that 2:20, but she's still going to run on that a big personal best. And before that, is that Teferi just coming across the line?
It's amazing though, Paula, how this event just keeps on throwing up shot winners. You can't predict anything here, can you?
No, you can't, and I think the more that it does that, the more that it grows, and I think the Standard Chartered Dubai Marathon is really becoming known, certainly in Ethiopia, as the place where you can go to make your mark, to see how good you can